All right, welcome. Patrick Rooney here from Old School, and I'm glad that you're with me tonight. It is live Saturday night, so I am so happy you are here. We are going to do, I don't know, something a little bit different, something definitely a little different than I had originally planned for tonight. And I want to welcome everybody. Welcome, Randy K. Good to see you, and the others that are going to be now in the chat or will be in the chat soon. And uh, first of all, my name is Patrick Rooney, and Old School is uh, I'm the founder of Old School, Natural Health, Success, and Freedom. That's what it's all about. That's what it's always been about, and probably always will be about. My parents were old schoolers, products of the Great Depression, love their country, Democrats, but still love their country. My dad was a Navy vet in World War II. He's on the aircraft carrier. Lost friends in the Pacific. Just went through hell, but still. Let me turn this off. Sorry about that, guys. I hear that a little bit in the background. But still was an American. He was a New Deal Democrat. Back in the day, you used to have Republicans and Democrats, and they actually could get along. They weren't at each other's throats all the time. In general, all were patriotic. Not every single person, but as a rule, so many were actually patriots. My dad flew the flag at every time. I've said this before, but I think it's worth repeating on this show. My dad flew the flag every time there was any kind of holiday whatsoever, and very patriotic. And my mother was patriotic as well. They didn't have abortion. Well, there were abortions back then. I'm sure people were always killing their, unfortunately, their unborn children. In every era of life, there's always been murder. But abortion was not legal back then. And people didn't even think of doing things like that. And unfortunately, things changed, right? We lost prayer. We used to have prayer in the school. We used to have the Bible was a main book in the schools. It was like the main book. The Bible was also the main book that gave us our Declaration and our Constitution. That it was based more, that the Constitution of the United States was based more on the Bible than any other book, period. You look at the first few books of the Bible that Moses wrote, Deuteronomy and these books, they were law. They were law, and our laws have been based on that. So America, yeah, people have always been screwed up. It's never been perfect here on earth, but back in the day, we actually had a functional society. And I'm a product of that. I'm a product of the 1960s when I was born and raised in the 60s in Southern California. And we had a great life. Ronald Reagan was the governor back then. I didn't know anything about it, but I remember reading the newspaper and seeing, the governor of the state of California, we don't have a deficit in California. We had a surplus. Honest to God, we had a surplus in the state of California in the 1960s. Totally amazing. Now California, I left California and it turned into a hellhole. Unfortunately, I still know people there. Still a beautiful state physically, but gone to hell in a handbasket. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about things that can be done even today, even in states like California. Whatever state you are in, there are ways that we can deal with certain things. And there's no guarantee of anything, but there are ways that we can deal with things. And that's what I want to focus on. Let me say hi to people. People are jumping in the chat here. I just want to say hi to everybody. My friend Martin Francis is in here. Martin's here. Yes, Martin is here. You don't have to say it twice. If you want, you can say it 3 times if you want. Martin is here. Anyway, prayers for Martin. Martin's going through a tough time, but he's a tough man with a tough spirit. And I have a lot of admiration for that. So prayers for Martin. Yes, he's going through some physical stuff still, and maybe we'll talk about it sometime, or he can get it out in some way. But spiritually, I think he's stronger maybe than ever, so thank God for that. Dane Dugan is in the chat. Dane, hello. Dane is hopefully I can say it, he's an entrepreneur, I know that much, and I know he likes Governor DeSantis a lot, and I think is pushing him for president, and he wanted to talk to me about that. We may do that on a show sometime. Tonight I wanted to lay the candidate stuff aside a little bit. Everybody's probably frothing at the mouth, and I understand that. We all get into the game of the candidates, and like I've told you on other shows before, I used to love the horse races when I was a kid. Used to read the racing form at my dinner table, and always loved games, always loved sports, always loved. I like to play back in the day, I'd play cards a little bit, go to Las Vegas. I love to try to win in blackjack, things like that. I wasn't very good at it, so I didn't have much of a career in blackjack. But it was fun, and I always enjoy games and things like that. So we're all into that. There's a competitive thing. There's this and that. But I want to just kind of caution us for a second here about all that stuff. Let me see. Let me read a few. Wow, we already have a few comments already. I haven't even gotten into the subject matter yet. Martin says, yeah, the Bible was actually a public schools being used to teach kids. How far we've come, right? We lost prayer in the school as well. And soon after that, we lost, abortion became illegal. And now there's, Florida here, thank God, Governor DeSantis here has pushed back. They haven't taken it out of Florida completely, but it's now a 6-week thing. They call it a heartbeat bill that they just passed, and Governor DeSantis just signed. And I think that's a great step. You can say, well, 6 weeks is not good enough. There's still going to be aborted babies. Absolutely. The question is that the best you can get in your state? I don't know if that was the best he can get. He had a Republican supermajority here in Florida. I don't know if it's the best, but it's pretty good in compared to where it was. We were an 18-week abortion state. Now we're down to 6 weeks. So it's definitely a lot better. And everybody should be pushing in their state against that. I was going to get into a little bit today about the underpinnings of things, which I guess I'm already talking about. I talked about the Bible being used in schools. The critical books, I think, that everybody should know something about starts with, I think, the Bible. You can talk about other books, but in terms of being a citizen, a great citizen, and that's what this show's about tonight. It's about what can you do for your country. It's a takeoff on the late John F. Kennedy, who said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And I think we need that message more than ever today. But the Bible was used in the school. It was known as, it's a great book because it's a law book, it's a science book, it's a spiritual book, it's an activist book, it's an everything book. And anybody who neglects the Bible or says it doesn't mean I don't need the Bible because I'm super spiritual and all this stuff. Maybe if you're some ascended master or something, you don't need a Bible, but the Bible's a dang good reminder of what is true. And we can easily get off that point, and coming back to the Bible is really important. Other books that are really key, obviously, other writings, obviously, among others, but these are the key ones. And we're talking about, I'm basically talking about how to be a better citizen, okay? It may sound like a boring topic or whatever. I think it's really critical at this juncture in our history. I think to some degree we need to stop the circular firing squad. It's easy to kind of handicap our candidates and go after them. And this guy's got pudding fingers, and this guy is the worst guy since Mao. And so on and so forth. We can get to all that. We can hash all that out. But I think we need to focus and keep our eye on the ball of something that's more important than the candidates, and that is the elections. And so if you're going to be a good citizen, you're going to be someone who votes. You're going to be someone, hopefully, who does something. You're going to be someone who maybe is a poll worker, right, at elections, maybe a poll watcher. I've done both, and they're both very important jobs. You you need to know a little bit about this country. You need to know what our laws are based on. That way you can stand up for them easier if you know what the laws are. I mean, look at Paul in the Bible. He was a citizen of Rome and he knew the laws. He was also a Jew and he knew his rights as a Jew. He kept himself from being killed probably more than once by knowing the law. Think about that. You know, we tend to think of these guys as just spiritual and to get out of every situation, they just prayed and then, you know, God pulled them up in a basket or something. That happened, but that's not the only way. God wants us to engage. He doesn't, he expects us to use our common sense. And so Paul knew the law, but in knowing the law, you should have some understanding of the Bible to start with, because the law is based on the Bible. You should have some understanding of the Declaration of Independence, right? Very simple document, beautiful document, speaks to everybody. And if you understood the Declaration of Independence, forget the Constitution itself, just put it aside for a second. If you understood the Declaration, you would have stood on the Declaration and you never would have allowed abortion to be legal, period, in America. Right? Declaration of Independence. It says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, what's the first one? Life. Life. You have a right to life. It's a God-given right. It's not the Declaration of the Constitution. They don't give those rights. They just mention some of the rights that we have from God. And if you don't like me saying that, then you don't like the founding documents. You might not like God, but these were what our documents were formed for. The founding documents were saying, here's some of your rights. You have inalienable rights. That means you have them, period. You're born with them. And so we need to be thinking about that again. We never should have gone down the route, of just saying someone doesn't have the right to live. Can you imagine that? Some atheist, Madeline Mare O'Hare, whatever her name was, comes in and, you know, does a lawsuit and they start taking prayer out of the schools and then they take out the right to life. And so if you know what the Declaration says, yes, you should know this stuff anyway without any written stuff anyway. I understand that, but this stuff helps bolster you. It helps you be able to use the law. And the same thing with the Constitution. I've been reading the Constitution lately. Most people don't read the Constitution. If you read it, let me know. But most people don't read it all. If you read it, it helps inform you about certain things and it wakes you up. Oh, wow. You know, the Congress is supposed to declare war, right? Do you know we have a war going on right now with the Russia? And I'm not trying to hit anybody's hot button issues. I'm not telling you what side to be on or anything like that. But I'm just going to give you a reality here. We have a hot war going on right now with Russia. Okay. It's what you call a proxy war. We're using another country called Ukraine. We're claiming to help them. I'm not saying there's not a reason to help these people. Okay. But the people in charge here are very corrupt and they are not doing anything because they love Ukrainians. Okay. They are doing things because they're in a war for power, kind of like the West and the East. And we are in a war right now that a 21-year-old man who's in the army, I think he's in the army, he's in one of the armed services. And he put out information showing that the heads of our military were lying, saying that we're not sending our men and women, I don't know if there's women yet, but there may be, to Ukraine to fight a war against the Russians. So we were doing a proxy thing before. That's what we were supposedly doing, where we were kind of the puppet master. We've been the puppet master in Ukraine for a long time. We've been pulling shenanigans in a lot of countries behind the scenes for a long time, illegally, unconstitutionally. Constitution is supposed to declare war, and we have not declared war in Ukraine. What are we doing sending our men and maybe women, let's just say both probably, I don't know, special forces, whoever's over there now, I don't know the details. This 21-year-old guy, I don't know if he's what branch of the army he's in or whatever it was, put this stuff out there. I guess he got a hold of classified documents somehow and put them out there. And because he told the truth about what's going on, they raised hell. This guy would probably be thrown into jail. I don't know if they ever let this guy out. And they made what he did into like a horrible thing. I'm not saying so much about what he did. Should classified documents be shown in wartime and all that? Okay, these get into very deep questions. But the fact of the matter is, if we are fighting a war in another country now that this Congress of the United States did not sign off on, I don't care what your opinion is about this war. You can't have a war where you're sending your people over to another country if you don't declare it. So this is why we have to get literate, or whatever you want to call that. We got to wake up, start using our common sense, using our the Bible, the founding documents, and start using them. Use the Constitution. It's supposed to be the law of the land. Everything that's not okayed by the Constitution is out of bounds. It's illegal. And there are all sorts of things that are going on that are illegal right now. But I'm just mentioning one of them right now. And it's very, very concerning, because what happens is when someone brings up something that they don't want brought up, it's not about what the person brings up. Okay. Like, for instance, the January 6th stuff. They showed federal involvement in January 6th. I mean, it's pretty dang clear. Tucker Carlson was showing it, and other people have been showing it. There's involvement there with the federal government. Federal government has been involved in a lot of stuff over the years. A lot. I mean, I'm learning more and more stuff that's blown my mind. I'm even going to put a plug in for Alex Jones today. Alex Jones might be a wild character. I'm not saying everything he says and has done has been correct, but this guy has been something of a prophet. I've started to look at some of his older stuff. He's been something of a prophet on certain topics. One thing I think he's right on about is that we do have a deep state, whatever you want to call it. There are people behind the scenes that are running our government that we didn't give them any permission for. We have our Constitution. We have our elected officials who we're not watching well enough right now. And we have an unelected bunch of people who we need to do, hopefully, I put John F. Kennedy's picture up here and mentioned him. John F. Kennedy tried to do something about that, and look where it got him. Ronald Reagan was assassinated. Well, they wouldn't assassinate him. They tried to assassinate him. I don't know what the full details of that. I'm just saying Ronald Reagan was a great president, and he was interfering with what they were doing. And love him or hate him, take apart whatever Trump has done in terms of the shots, which I totally disagree with him on. And I wish he would come clean and straighten that out. But take that aside for a second if you can, and just look at some of the other stuff. The people behind the scenes are concerned about Trump. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just saying they are concerned about him. They don't know if they have him in their pocket or not. And they doubt that they do. And that's why they're going after him so strongly. They doubt that they have him. And you can say, well, he had his chance before and he really didn't do anything about the deep state and all this. And there's a lot of things maybe he didn't do. He did do a lot of things. And I think he's a horrible judge of character in some ways, makes some horrible hires and kept people around way too long. Didn't stand with his gut on a lot of stuff. But, okay, I'm just saying, you can take all that stuff aside, and my gut tells me that the deep state people are a little worried that if he was to get back in, he may just be more than just talk the second time. And we don't have a lot of time to mess with, folks. I will get to your comments again, but I'm just kind of finishing a thought here. We don't have a lot of time here. This is kind of what I want to talk about. We can talk about our candidates, and I have my pros and cons about all of them. Vivek Ramaswamy. He's an interesting character, interesting guy, self-made guy in the high-tech world. He's running for president too. He's a Hindu. He's not a Christian. I'm a Christian. I prefer to see a Christian. But he loves Ronald Reagan, and he seems like a decent guy, and he's definitely against the woke situation. I'm just throwing another name out there. So we can talk about that. Maybe we will hash that out another time or whatever. But I want to say this first, and I will get to the comments in a moment here. I want to at least introduce this. We need to get a hold of our elections before we get a hold of our candidates. Okay. That's probably what drove me in the first place to want to do this show. We need to get a hold of our elections first. You can say what you want about Trump. He's the only guy I know who's talking about paper ballots, one day, no BS mail-in stuff. Make sure that you have make sure you know who is voting and all that. There's a lot of different things you could do with that. Mail-in is a huge one, but the machines are a problem, a huge problem. I've done shows on this. I check out my interview. You won't see it on this channel. You have to go to my page on Rumble, Old School with Patrick Rooney on Rumble. And if I ever get booted off of here, you know where you can find me. And who knows how long I have for here, but I'm gonna try to be wise, but I'm not gonna be super, super careful because the hour is a little late here. So check out my interview with Professor David Clements on Rumble about the machines. I think it'll probably blow your mind. And if you think that paper ballots are antiquated and it's a thing for another time or whatever, you're wrong about that. France has gone back to paper ballots. They have election results the same night. Wouldn't that be wonderful back in America? Other countries have done it too. If we don't get that right, I don't care who you run. I don't care who you run or who you don't like or who you do like. You will lose. If you're a Republican, you will lose unless there is some desire to install somebody who they believe they can completely control. Okay? Other than that, you will lose. Now, we may lose anyway because we have slept for so long. We've been fighting each other so long and yelling about our candidates. I challenge any of you. How many of you out there are really doing anything to look into our elections, to do anything? And I'll give you some information on that, how you things that you can do. It's pretty simple to start with. It's not really that hard, but how many of you have really looked into that? How many have been poll workers, poll watchers? How many have gotten other people out to vote? How many have really looked into how to secure our elections? I'm talking about beyond looking at videos. I have been I'm not holding myself up as some great patriot here. I mean, I'm just as susceptible as the rest of you guys, I think, so far. I've been, with probably looking at too much news that really doesn't matter that much in the scheme of things. We need to be able to focus on the few key things that are really worth watching. And the rest of the stuff is not so important. We don't have to be up on every single issue, but we do need to be in prayer. Okay. We talk about that all the time. We do need to be looking at our founding documents. By the way, there's a website called patriotacademy.com. The things I'm talking about today are in the description. I put a lot of the stuff in the description. So you can go after the show and you can check out some of the links. But patriotacademy.com is really interesting. They do something, it's a class called Biblical Christianity, which I think is fascinating. I'm sorry, Biblical Citizenship. Biblical Citizenship. And they show you videos and they have a workbook and things like that. And they kind of show you the founding of America and how it was based on God. And biblical principles ruled the day. I mean, it was all about those things. And even if you don't want to go through their classes, and I've seen all their videos, there's like 8 videos, they have a workbook that you can get. And you go to that website, patriotacademy.com, and they have a workbook that you can get, the Biblical Citizenship workbook. And you can get that. And just start. And in the book, it's really interesting because it has the Constitution here as written. And then on the other page, on the next page, it will show you like a modern version of it. Like someone has translated it into like modern day language. So you can look at, if you can't kind of understand some of the old language, it kind of gives you a direct way to see it in new language, and you can understand anybody, no matter what their grade level is, unless you just can't read, can understand what the Constitution is about, and then start understanding it and start applying it little by little. And you don't just learn this stuff, but you go out and use it. And one thing I was going to hold this stuff up, but sometimes it's not worth holding up. I'm just going to say it while we're on the air here, while I remember this stuff. But what you can do is you can go to your county. Go to, you live in a county. I don't care if it's a blue county or red county, whatever. All counties have corruption. I live in a red county now. It's got a lot of corruption. Okay. If you're in a blue county, it's definitely got a lot of corruption. But you can go there and you can start to speak out. And it's not that hard. You could be nervous or whatever, use a few notes if you want to start with. But you can go and speak out and speak to your board of county commissioners or your city council or whoever you are. I've lived in areas that were made up of a bunch of conservatives for the most part, and yet they were run by liberals or rhinos. What is that all about? You're being run by people because you're not out there. You're arguing too much about who your preferred candidate is for president, and you're not doing anything in your local communities. Okay. So you can go and you can start to speak out about these issues. And then the more informed you are, the more you understand the Declaration and the Constitution, you can learn more after that. But if you get that stuff to begin with, you're on a solid foundation, and just using common sense, you're on a solid foundation. After I saw Professor Clements, who I did the interview with, this guy's out there. I saw him again in Pensacola at the stadium last night. Him and other activists about health freedom and getting the election straight. This guy has been out there traveling in his car, city to city to city, and this guy's got kids at home. He was fired. There's a long story with him, and you see it if you watch my video with him. He was fired from his job. He was at a University of New Mexico State University professor. He told his students, you don't have to wear masks. You don't have to get the shot. Okay. They fired him. And after he got fired, he had time. He went out and got into the election issue. He's been helping the January 6th people. Everybody should be doing something to remember those people, pray for them at least, do some help with them if you can. But he's been out there looking for free and fair elections, specifically dealing with the machines. And so one of the things that he said when I was watching him speak, he just kind of encouraged, hey, go to your council. Yeah, good idea. And we could start asking them questions. And so I actually went to the council. I have a little clip of me going to our county people and asking them a simple question. I asked them about the machines. I said how dangerous it is and how these machines can move any election any way they want. And it's very provable. And I said, what are you doing about that? And then I said, hey, would you guys, by show of hands, I just thought of something I should do, by show of hands, how many of you guys would go and agree to have paper ballots again in this county? Paper ballots for next election. Show of hands. 3 out of the 5 county commissioners raised their hands. Now, they didn't write anything down. They didn't vote on it technically or anything like that. But we all have seen, we have video, we have evidence that 3 out of the 5 have said they would go back to paper ballots. And that's just me. I don't know a lot. I just took something that somebody suggested and went and did it and got these guys on record to do something. And now we got to follow it up, of course, but at least it's something. And I've been to other meetings, other people out there much more than me. We have people who are just amazing. I mean, they're wise. They're erudite. They know the law. They know the details. And if you want to help your local community, you got to know some details. You got to know, like, what are the structure when you're going to build homes and things like that? What do you need to do in terms of putting in infrastructure and things? And maybe that glazes people's eyes over. But like, I know where I am, everybody's coming here. Everybody's coming to Florida and wants to live here. So guess what? The crowds are getting out of control. The roads have not been updated as much as they should be. There's rainfall, floods. It's kind of a mess. So you kind of have to know the laws and then how to talk to these people. And then you got to talk to them with some sense. You have to be able to talk mano a mano with them, or womano with them, whatever it is, but they're on the same level. Actually, they're our servants. So in a way, structurally, we're higher than they are. They are our servants. The people are in charge. Nobody wants you to know that, who's in power, but we are in charge. And so you talk to them, not disrespectfully, because you talk to them person to person. You can talk to people respectfully. You don't have to yell at them or threaten them or some crazy stuff. Just talk to them. Okay. They're human beings. Some of them are bad. Some of them are decent. Okay. That's just the same thing as everybody else. They don't become evil just because they got into politics. They're not somebody that we have to hate. But we do have to work with people and talk to people that we don't necessarily agree with. Okay. I said a lot here. I didn't mean to say all that to begin with. And now I'm going to go to some of your comments. And I appreciate you guys hanging in with me. Let me know what you think of all this. Does this make sense to you? Does it not make sense? Do you still want to go and look, if you still want to go and promote your candidate or hammer the guy that you don't like, that's on you. I'm not saying you shouldn't ever criticize or anything like that. And people, some of my friends get mad at me because I say, hey, the way you do it counts. And they say, oh, you're just being weak, and you need to call people names, and you need to call them cowards and call them they're in a cult and this and that. And if the shoe fits, then whatever. I guess there are times to call people names. Jesus did it, but there are times to kind of like not call people names, and there are times to kind of understand where other people are coming from, that they don't necessarily see it the way you do. It's not a crime to have a difference of opinion. So you can do that if you want. You can go after you can yell to high heavens about whoever you want or support whoever you want. But I'm telling you, if you really want to do something other than just feel good and make it a big ego exercise, if you really want to do something that really works, then get your hands dirty. Actually do the work. Actually, if you're not willing to fix the elections, then you should just shut up about the candidate. Honestly, you should just shut up about the candidates. I don't really want to hear from you unless you're willing to get your hands dirty and actually start fixing things at a local level. And start in your county. You can do something in your county. Okay. You can have some control in your state, but just to look at the national scene or the international scene and forget your county and your state is madness. In your city, it's madness. It's the way that they've trained us. It's the way that they've trained us to be. They want us all fighting with each other. They want us fighting about stuff that isn't going to move the needle. And it's just going to basically lead to demoralization among our own ranks. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. I do want to tell you, and again, there's links here. And if I don't talk a lot further about this in today's show, just know this. Professor Clements has his own website. I have links here. You should go to his site on Rumble. He has one on his own, on the web. It's a very interesting site. And he has one on Telegram. Those of you who are kind of on the right, he has a great page, as a lot of people do on Telegram, where he keeps up stuff on a regular basis. But he's a little in depth for people if you want to step back and just know what you can do. I also put another link in. Where did I put this thing? There's these two ladies. They're mothers. Okay. Now, a lot of us have been trained to, they're women. We can't listen to them because, men are in charge and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Men do have a role, and men should be in charge of things. But if men abdicate their positions, okay, where do you think Joan of Arc came from? Where do you think Ruth or these people in the Bible came from? They stepped up because men were stepping down. So there's these two ladies, and I forget their first names, but they're mothers. And Professor Clements knows them, and their website is called TWORedpills.org. TwoRedPills.org. I'm sorry, I was reading it wrong. I got a little weird dyslexic thing reading it for a second. Oh, what? I'm reading the wrong thing. No, TwoRedPills.org. Again, it's in the links. And what they have in there is like a PDF, and you could pull it out, and it gives you an idea of where you can start to do something. Now, if we all do something in our counties and we're able to get our counties back to paper ballots, which has happened even in California, Shasta County, California, just happened among other places. Even if we do that, there's no guarantee that we're going to change the election, but at least we can do something. I mean, I hate to be grim here, but isn't it better to fight in the Alamo for some greater good, or be one of the 300, you know, uh, Jesus Christ, the apostles, they didn't make, Moses didn't make it into the promised land. Okay. Dr. King didn't make it to the promised land. Okay. And so on and so forth. Gandhi didn't make it to this, the promised land in terms of whatever the physical was on this earth. Right. So there's no guarantee that we're going to magically get our land back, as Dr. Clements or Professor Clements said. There's no guarantee of any of that stuff. There's no guarantee of anything, but there is a guarantee that if you have to go down, you at least go down with your boots on. Isn't that better than just, giving up? Do what you can do. The apostles went down. The founding fathers, a lot of them went down. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, right? I've asked before, what have we pledged in comparison? And some of them had to give every measure of that. Some of them died. Some of them, they burned their house down. Someone, everything they owned went away. Some of them were whatever. They lost everything. And are we not willing to lose what, Netflix or something? I mean, what are we? What are we thinking we're going to gain that's so great? I don't want to lose my GMO burger or whatever. So think about that a little bit. Okay. I'm really going to the comments right now, but I had to get this stuff out. So I think you guys can excuse me a little bit. I don't know where to start here, but I'm just going to kind of go through whatever comments I can see that are grabbing of whatever. Okay. Fabian said Duke Magian was good. Well, Duke Magian used to be the governor in California. He wasn't a bad governor. He was kind of rhino-ish, but he wasn't bad. Speaking of California, there was a governor, Pete Wilson, who is the one who put through a measure called Proposition 187, which effectively cut off services for illegal aliens. Oh, you can't say illegal aliens now. I'm going to say illegal. Sorry, but that's what they're called legally. Illegal aliens in California, and cutting off their services and all that. And you know what? It was very effective. Now, politically, they ended up going after him and they ended up making him into a devil or whatever. And you know what? He kind of ended up like a founding father, I guess. He did great work. He did good things for his state. And eventually, they got to him. Justice Clarence Thomas, right? Biden tried to have him removed and never get to the Supreme Court. And almost got away with it. But Justice Clarence Thomas stood up and gave a beautiful, impassioned defense. And it was great. And the people were with him. I think it was like 2-1. The people were with Justice Thomas, believing him when Anita Hill got up there and smeared his name. And 2-1 at least believed Clarence Thomas to begin with. And after a while, they chipped away. And then I think at least half the people believe Anita Hill. And there was something else I was going to mention too, where over time, something changes where, once something was good and then over time, they kind of use their political machine, their media machine, and they just drill something into you and make something sound true that really wasn't true. All right, more comments. Dane Dugan, let's put his up here. CRT can be taught, but not Bible. That's crazy. Yeah, that's the world we're in now. We are in an upside down world. I think most of you know that. That's why there's no guarantee of anything, but in prayer and belief in God, and that's enough, right? Because that's all we have in the end. All we have is our souls and our spirits in the end. Yeah, we want to live long lives, but all we have in the end, there's no guarantee of that. And in this world, they've already taken over America. It's very obvious. They've cheated in the last couple times where we did the voting. I don't know how much I can say and still stay here. And it's obvious that they did, and they'll do it again next time, unless we do something. And even then, again, there's no guarantee, but let's at least be Americans here. Let's at least stand up as Americans together, Can we have some unity and stand for something together instead of tearing each other apart? Is that too hard to ask here? Can't we all just get along? All right. Channeling Rodney King. No, we're not all going to get along. I don't mean that, but we have to have some unity. We have to have some unity. Even Ronald Reagan said, if somebody agrees with me 80%, they're not my enemy. You know, and it's really crazy in this world. We need to be getting together, finding ways to survive if possible, and at least survive spiritually, but also physically if possible. Get together with people. And we're not going to agree with people. There's nobody we're going to agree with 100% on. Nobody. And I think we have to give a little bit of an allowance for people to not see whatever it is that we see and not be so self-righteous about it. We can't be on like a friend of mine got mad when I called it a jihad, but we can't be on a jihad, meaning, I don't mean that in the way of death. I mean it in the way of holy war. Be careful with holy wars because it can make you feel self-righteous about stuff, and it makes you less rational, in my opinion, to be able to converse with people who don't agree with you. Okay, let me see. Yes. Oh, Martin talked about getting better. Yeah, Martin said, I'm getting tough because I'm letting go of my anger. Thank you. And thank you, Martin, for that. And thank God for that, right? I mean, we will all thank God for any improvement that we have. That's what we should be, helping each other become better. And I understand if you want to tell people certain things. I'm not going to bag on everybody completely here. I understand if you want to tell people things and you think you're waking them up. Maybe you are in some way or another. I'm not going to argue the point. But let's not focus so much on just this and that, you know, but let's focus on helping people become a better human being, a better Christian, a better follower of Jesus Christ. And if you're not a Christian, again, I said last week, I think Christianity is the most beautiful religion I can think of. I don't know anything better. I mean, what other religion brings in that sacrifice was done once, so we don't have to keep sacrificing over and over. We don't have to have a million outside laws, right? And we can forgive, the religion of forgiveness, that you can forgive and you don't have to hold grudges against people, right? Not only should you not, you shouldn't do that. God is totally against those things. What did he say? Jesus say the greatest two commandments: love God and love your neighbor. I think we can do better at loving the neighbor department, personally. Okay, let me go a little further here. I'm not trying to bag on anyone personally. I'm really not. I'm just thinking of, different friends and the different beliefs. Okay. Okay, I'm going to give you a fair shot, Fabian. I'm not going to, I'll give you a chance to put your stuff up here. I don't know what you're saying here first, so I'll just throw it up here in faith that it will be whatever it is. I'm focused on helping have souls onto the path and saving them from world now, including America. America is not going to be saved politically. Way too late. However, I will still vote. Fabian, I'm going to tell you something. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the year it's going to happen in. I know that you have a video that you present a lot that tells you we know the year and all that stuff. Maybe somebody knows the year. I don't think so. We know the season. We know the season is here. But it really kind of bothers me when people say we're not going to survive in any kind of, you don't know what we're going to do because we haven't tried it yet. You say something is a failure without trying it. That's defeatism. Or you want to look to some future world, and a lot of people are into this. Hey, they're into some form of rapturing or something. I'm not against anything that the Bible says about what Jesus is going to do or the next world we're going to have. But I do know one thing, and I've said it before. Jesus said we need to be salt and light, okay? And you can interpret that any way you want. One of the interpretations to me is clear. Our founding fathers were men of God, most of them, I believe, and they were inspired. And I think any of you here, most of you here would agree that our founding documents were inspired by God. Declaration, Constitution, inspired by God. These guys gave everything they had to fight. And they didn't just fight physically. They petitioned their government. They petitioned the crown, England, years before they actually went and fought. They put the effort in. Okay. They did the voting. They did the counting. They did all, they taught their kids. They didn't, they were in the world and actually living here. Okay. I really dislike this idea that, oh, you can't save it, but you haven't tried it. What have you done? Have you really gone out there and done anything in your community to make a better community? Or are we just taking shots on social media at people? I mean, think about it. What are we really doing in the world to make a better place? I'm not going to give up on anything before I've actually done something and tried something. All right. I know I'm on kind of a soapbox tonight, but forgive me, folks. I got to say some of this stuff. It has to be said. And thank God I have a show to say it, right? Dane Dugan said, pride comes before the fall. Fabian says, no, it's a proxy war. We're doing the same as we did with Europe, helping. No. Listen, I know when I don't know something, and I know when I do know something. Okay. It's not just a proxy thing. We are, as far as I know, fighting with our soldiers now in a hot war that is unconstitutional. Okay. You have to be the House of Representatives, the Congress has to sign off on a war and declare war. It's not for the president to do at all. Okay. So if you're going to be in this kind of situation, you gotta be upfront. Our country has been lying to us. Our government has been lying to us for decades about wars. Okay. Thank God. One of the good things that Trump did is he got us out of wars. There were no new wars when Trump was in there. Okay. And peace was breaking out all over the Middle East thanks to Trump. Okay. I'm just going to say that. I'm not taking a side here or saying I love him 100% on everything he's done, but let's give credit where credit is due. And getting us into wars, like a lot of the rhinos and a lot of the what they call neocons like to get us into wars. They've been doing it for decades. Trump was the first one to come along in decades who said, no, I don't want, I've just seen enough men and women come back in body bags. And we need to be upfront. The government is us. The people should know what's going on. You want to fight a war, tell us what's going on. Okay. Tell us what's going on. Don't be pulling stuff behind our back. Don't be pulling all sorts of crazy stuff that's bringing us towards World War III quicker. I'm not going to point fingers about who did what, but somebody blew up the pipeline. Okay. And I don't think it was Russia. Just saying. All right. Let's see. I'm not going to get into more war stuff here. Fabian's got a lot of stuff. I can't read everything, of course, because Fabian has a lot of stuff always. No, I'm not going to argue about Ukraine anymore. If you can't answer my question, and nobody can, we're done as far as Ukraine goes. I mean, we can help them in some whatever ways we think is useful, but we're not going to bring our men and women over there to fight there without a declared war. Ain't going to happen, at least from my point of view. All right. Oh, Dane Dugan was saying a smart guy, but doesn't have a chance. Vivek Ramaswamy. I like this guy. Very sharp dude. Look him up. I don't know. I don't know who I'm voting for, but he's a smart dude. I like him. We'll see. I'm sure there's things I don't agree with him on, but I like him, what I've heard so far. Dane said, what? Voter ID and in-person voting only with the exception of military. Yeah, because military has to, they're going to be serving somewhere else. They can't come over and vote. Patrick, Trump had 4 years to do anything, blah, blah, blah. Yes, about balloting, deep state associated with shots, medical mafia. I mean, I agree with some of the stuff. He is totally fold. No, he did not totally fold. On this issue, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to say this is not an excuse, but we have to kind of have a full picture of what's going on. Trump had a great, 3 years or whatever, until COVID came in. And he was kind of blindsided at the time by the Chinese. They really did a number on him, and they used a weakness that he has. He has a lot of ego, and they use his ego against him because now he can't admit when he's done something wrong that he should have. I agree with that. And they use his ego against him. But he had a great run until that, but then his ego took him down. So there's still hope for everybody on this earth. Every one of you that I disagree with, Trump, everybody I disagree with. Even God, I suppose there's hope for Biden. Obama, I don't know. He may have been completely taken over. But there's hope for everybody. And if Trump repented and came out and said certain things, yeah, because he has a lot of skills and God gave him some amazing talents. And God definitely used. The thing that people don't understand, though, is God uses lots of different people. And it doesn't make you necessarily good if he uses you, or bad. You're just an instrument. And I think we get a little hung up on, since God used Trump. I think God definitely used Trump to wake people up, definitely. But I think we get a little hung up on, because God used him, it makes him necessarily have to be good, or somebody's necessarily bad. God, if you read the book of like Isaiah, who was it? The Persian king? No, was it Persian? A guy named Rezon, I think, King Rezon. He used a king, God did, as his instrument, a wicked person, to go and cast judgment on Israel, to be his arm of judgment against Israel. And you could say that God has used that in some ways with natural disasters as well, sometimes, right? It's very possible. And why are they called acts of God? Because somewhere along the line, in the Old Testament, it talked about things like that, and it talked about certain things being acts of God. So God has a merciful side, and God has a judgment side, and God uses people. I think there's a fair argument to be made that God is using Biden to wake up America. He used Trump in a certain way to show what could be done in a positive way for America, for the most part. And then I think he's using Biden now as a way to wake people up further. Like, wow, the inmates have gotten in charge, and Obama's somewhere, in the basement, and he's got the marionette thing going like this on Joe. And, and so, I think God is showing that, awakening people up and say, how dumb do you have to be to not see the hand of God in today's world? I mean, China's floating a spy balloon over America. Remember that? There's a spy balloon going over for days over America, more than one, I guess. And then the media tries to somehow cover that up anyway. Oh, it's a spy balloon. It's not spying on any sensitive, even though they're near our nuclear sites. No, they're not spying on any sensitive information. Guess what? Yes, they were. That came out, and the media had to backtrack. Oh, okay. Well, we said they weren't spying, but they were. So what shows you clearer than that the president of the United States is a tool of the communist Chinese, that he works for them. In some ways, he works for, he's involved with Ukraine, of course, in different ways, but he works for the communist Chinese. He's a tool, an agent of the Chinese. I mean, you'd have to be like have like something really wrong with you not to be able to see that. God is making things so clear. He's bringing out this trans movement right now and showing the hatred these people have for God and for Christians. They won't even bring out the manifesto, right? They still, to this day, as far as I know, the Nashville police is still holding, or somebody, I'm sure the people in FBI or whoever's holding on the manifesto of this woman who was basically a trans woman, right? So it's so clear what's going on. I mean, you have to be crazy. I'm not putting down anybody who has some kind of problem knowing if they're a man or woman or whatever, but the devil somehow had to reach you. Your mind has to be somehow taken away, at least temporarily, for you to take some kind of blockers to stop your natural parts from coming out when you're a teenager, and even have them cut off. This is pure evil. And people who are doing this it obviously should be illegal, and it should be made illegal, and it is illegal in certain states, and people need to be prosecuted for it wherever they can be. Where it's illegal, where it's not illegal, they should make it illegal. Where it's illegal, where it's not legal, they should be prosecuted because it's crazy and it's evil. So there's all sorts of things that God is showing you right now. How simple. He should have showed you back with abortion. How simple was it to know that we all deserve a right to life? We all deserve a right to life. And yet somehow we allowed people to just take that away from us. How is that? It's mind boggling. We've got to wake up to some of this stuff. And I agree that we're going to go down, and we won't last too long if we don't get a handle on this stuff. But I'm going to fight in the meantime. And again, please fight on your local level and do something about what's going on. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit more stuff, and then we'll probably let you guys go soon. But I want to see a little bit more of what you guys have here. You guys have any other comments for me? Please make them. And I can't keep up with everything, obviously, but I'll do the best I can. Let's see. Hello, Gabe. Hello, Gabe. Gabe at house, I believe it is. So hi, Gabe. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Sticks Bass. I used to call him Sticks Bass because I thought of a fish, but Sticks Bass loves to play bass. I don't think it's a string bass, but it's like a drum bass kind of thing, right? If I'm getting that right. And he said, maybe too many illegal voters from so many border to matter now anyway, now that we should give up voting. Not that we should give up voting. Dems are domestic enemy number one. Democrats are a problem. And see, that's why we're such a threat to people now. We're not violent. I'm not calling for any violence, nor would I. And most of the people I'm aware of are not violent people. Americans generally are not violent. We just love our God, and we love our Declaration, our Constitution, our way of life. That has become a threat to the people behind the scenes now. And they become very difficult. As I said earlier, they're not elected, most of these people. They've been around for a long time. Some of them are committed Marxists. Some of them hate God, a lot of them. And they hate our way of life, and they want to take us down. And Obama was always here to make sure that we got knocked down so that we were no longer the top nation. That's obvious. And he has his own allegiances. Everybody has their own allegiances. Obama has allegiances that are not to the God I serve, and not to this country. And now Joe, I don't know. I think Joe might have a little bit of a conscience left in him, but he's lost so much of his mind and stuff, and he's so controlled. But some of these people have no conscience. I think Obama, I don't know. I sometimes think he has no conscience, but I'm not sure. But a lot of these people don't have a conscience. So Gabe says, how is Martin Francis? I think Martin would be okay with me saying Martin is going through, he had a cancer situation. He's talked about that online. He's going through a rough patch still. So please keep him in your prayers. And he's doing treatment that he thinks is best. And hopefully he will turn that around, and God willing, he will. Meanwhile, he stays strong in spirit, because spirit is everything. We have spirit. That's a great thing about knowing about God and Christianity. We don't live like people who don't believe in God and just what's here now. We have a life that goes on forever. Hopefully we go into the right place. So that we don't want to live our life in a bad place, but our life goes on. No matter what happens, but God willing, Martin will be cured in Jesus' name. I hope and believe that he will be cured if that's God's will. So that's what's going on with Martin right now. Dane Dugas says, I agree the machines can't be trusted, but this never came up until 2020. Yeah, well, listen, they've been cheating for a long time. I mean, remember in 2000 where they had paper ballots, and then they had the hanging Chad thing in Florida, and the guy was trying to look at the paper ballot. It was eyeball sticking way out. He couldn't tell who the vote was supposed to be for, Gore or Bush. And so after that, they came up with I think it's called HAVA Act or something, where they basically started the machines after the 2000 presidential election. So after that, they started playing around with them. They learned how to hack them. And look, if you think that Obama won in 2012 legitimately, I got some swampland in Florida to sell to you. Romney, who turned out to be just just not a good guy. But at that time, he did pretty well. He laid off in one of the debates stupidly, but still, I think he was way up, and Obama won that election in 2012. So I think they definitely did something in that election. I think Trump surprised him in 2016. And after that, they said, we're not going to get surprised again. That's my opinion. And I can show you that. I mean, at some point, if you want, go to theprofessorsrecord.com, theprofessorsrecord.com, Professor David Clements. There's a link in there after the show. You can look at that. Start looking at some of the stuff in there. And I think if you're open-minded, and a lot of people will say, oh, they never proved anything. Well, how do you prove something in a court when you're not given standing in a court to try to prove anything? If their courts are set against you, and they are set against the average person, it's obvious that they're set for the people in power. I mean, the president of the United States, nothing happened to him or his son, even though they're owned by a foreign country. We already know that, right? I mean, we've seen the bank records. All sorts of things have happened. So anyway, let's see. Brian Pombo. Brian's a smart dude. He's been involved in politics a long time. So I'm going to see what he's got to say here. Machines have been an issue for years, much earlier than 2020. Yeah, I just said that. It has become mainstream because of the Trump race. Yeah. Remember that in 2016, when Trump won, the Democrats were all over the internet claiming that the machines were not trustworthy. Now, all of a sudden, as soon as Trump lost, he was complaining, rightfully so, but they were saying, oh, most free and fair election of all times, or whatever that stupid thing they kept repeating. So they knew and know that the machines are a joke, and they can be moved any way you want. And if you're in power, you're going to move them the way you want them to be. Okay. Fabian said, I will do what I can. Many of us are working full-time, Patrick, and must. Okay. Fine. I mean, whatever you can do, but I don't want you to have the mindset that we have lost already, because you may argue with me that the year that we're going to 2026, I think it's the year that you keep saying you may be right. You could be proved right. This is my show, my way I see it. Okay. I could be wrong. But I believe we know the season. We know when things getting pretty close. And I think they are getting pretty close. It looks like, but I don't know. I don't know what God will do, or what I think that God gave us a little more time, maybe when Trump got in the first time. I think God can stretch times out a little bit too, if he wants to. I mean, there have been people in the Bible who prayed to God that the sun, that it wouldn't rain, right? And it didn't rain. I forgot who that was. Then they prayed that it would rain, and then it rained, or that the sun would stay up for some reason. I think was they fighting a war and they wanted the sun to stay up longer or something? Somebody prayed for that. I don't know that everything is quite as fixed. We don't know God, okay? We don't know if things are quite as fixed in terms of time and stuff. All I know is we have a country. We haven't done our job as citizens. Let's at least do it before, okay? Even if we lose, let's at least do our job. That's all I'm asking. Fabian, do what you can. No one's asking you to be Superman here. Okay. Okay. Personally, I don't call people. Okay. I'm not going to get into that about calling names and stuff like that. I can't read everything, Fabian. You understand. You write a lot of stuff. Brian, Fabian, you do a ton on social media. Oh, calling people names. Obviously, you believe you're making a difference. We all need to put our time away from work towards making small leads. That is true. Every one of us spends more time than we need to on the internet. Take a fraction of the time that you're spending on the internet, take it out of that account. Let's pretend it's money. Instead of putting it in your bank, put it over here in a some gold or whatever. Okay. So put a little bit of your time that you're spending on the internet into actually doing real things, talking to your neighbors, talking to other people, building up the people of God, so to speak. Or maybe you don't think some of us are people of God. I don't know. But, or if they're not the people of God, maybe show them a better way. But you don't just show them stuff by telling them how bad their candidate is. That's one thing you can tell people, but there's a lot more to life than that. Okay. So, and go out to, how many of you guys who live in certain areas have even gone out to your county commissioners or city? Have you ever gone to any meetings at all and said anything or done anything or try to work with other people? There's a group in and I know Brian Pombo's doing a lot in Grants Pass area. He's got a organization there. Help this guy out. If you want to help do something electorally, which is important, there's nothing wrong with politics. Oh, I hate politics. It's beneath me. Politics is not beneath anybody. It wasn't beneath the founding fathers. It's not beneath us. So if you want to do something useful, see how you can help Brian Pombo and Grants Pass if you're up there. There's a community group that I help when I can in county that I'm in here, okay? Santa Rosa County in Florida. It's called CORE, Citizens Organizing to Restore Ethics, I believe is what it means. And I put their link to their Facebook page in the description here. CORE is doing some great stuff. It's already brought in help bring in a couple of new candidates. I mean, new people on our board, our county board. It may get us back to paper ballots just by the work that people in CORE are doing. People in CORE are not just the people who run CORE, but the whole citizenry. Okay. Those people are making a difference in their county. You'd be surprised what you can do. Democrats, liberals, and leftists have done, and elitists for a very long time have controlled big populations with a small amount of people. And at the stadium last night, they were talking about Venezuela. Okay. Some of you know the story of Venezuela. Venezuela is in Central America, was a powerhouse of a country, had a great economic powerhouse, much like California. It was doing amazing things. And within the last 10 years, it's gone socialist. They installed people. They had probably cheated in their voting, almost undoubtedly. And they changed the politics. And by changing the politics, they changed the country. They turned into a complete dump with people fleeing out of the country. Money laying in the streets that you can't even use to buy food with. That's coming to America if we don't do something. So if you don't think it's important to pick the right people in your area and pick the right president when it's time for that, and look at balance it to pick the best person possible, whatever that may be. And none of them are going to be perfect. And especially they need to be good in foreign policy, very solid in foreign policy. So this can mean your life, the life of your kids, the life of generations after you. If you get wiped out, America gets wiped out. If America allows itself to get wiped out, the world itself is over. Yeah. If you want to hasten your end times and you think you want to kind of push that, some people do. I think it's a crazy thing, but some people want to actually push that. I'm not saying anybody necessarily on here is trying to do that, but I know of people that are trying to hasten the end times. You try to hasten stuff by basically allowing your country to become an S-hole, and you think that's going to hasten the end times, and therefore God's going to smile down on you. I got news for you. God ain't going to be smiling at you. All right. Fabian's saying, Brian, he does what he can. Yes, I understand. Yeah. I would say this, guys. When criticisms are made, try to be a little bit objective to them. We don't have to defend ourselves all the time about everything. We don't have to let everything people say. We don't have to have an answer for everybody every time. I think it shows a little bit of something not quite right if you're having to answer people every single time about things. Something's not quite right there. I'm sorry, but that's the way I see it. All right. Sticks Bass. What's Martin angry about? I'm only angry at God and all the sociopaths. Most people are angry at something. And this can get to other shows we could do or have done, traumas in our past, the way we were raised. Generally, there's kind of like that pattern of the father being out of the picture. The mother comes in. This is not every family, but a lot of times the father has a weakness, tends to bow out. The mother does too much. The children get mad at the mother for being willful and kind of pushing the law down too hard on them. And the father can kind of sit in the background and be, hey, cool, we'll get all the firepower going against the mother here. It's a very typical system. There's much more horrible things than that go on with some people. Some people have horrible lives. There's many things, but most people are angry. And as the Bible says, we need to, even if the Bible didn't say it, we would know in our hearts that we need to let that stuff go. Okay, I'm going to read. Wow, you got a lot of stuff, Fabian. I can't read all of them. You said, prophecy is there to show us when, and it is amazing. Yes, Patrick, I have done things. You are putting me in a box. I think you kind of put yourself in a box for the most part, Fabian, to be honest with you. But that's the way I see it. You're wrong, Pat. Okay. All right. I got a lot of stuff from Fabian here telling me wrong. Hey, I could be wrong. I'm not God. I'm just a guy with the way I see things. I could be wrong. Okay. We all have a way we see things. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Forgive me. Okay. Just show me love. Okay. make some allowances that your friend Patrick could be wrong about you. Okay. And I like Fabian. I'm not against Fabian. I'm just saying I've had it out with Fabian about certain issues that I think he's gone over the top on. That's all. And I questioned some motivations. Yes, I have. Okay. Again, allow me some allowance. Martin, whoever thinks I'm wrong about this stuff, just show me some allowance. Love me as a brother. That's all. Thank you. Okay. Sixth base. Let's see. Questions about Ukraine. There's too much about Ukraine. Again, I'm not pro or con Ukraine, other than yes, Ukraine should be helped. Do it the right way. Don't lie to us and don't put our soldiers in battle without declaring a war. Pretty simple, right? Isn't that pretty simple? I mean, is that reasonable? I think it is. Dane says the media on the right and left are corrupt as hell. I'm trying to get through some of these at least before we go off, guys. 9/11 my time right now. It's funny. I used to see the time after the 9/11 bombings and all that. I would see on my clock, I'd have a digital clock, and I would see the number 9/11 on my digital clock so often. And I looked online and saw a lot of other people do the same thing, much more often than you would likely think you're going to see the number 9/11, right? Because it's 9/11 in the morning, it's 9/11 in the evening, it's only 9/11 twice a day. But I'm telling you, I was seeing it 9/11, 9/11, 9/11 over and over and over. And I often wondered, what does that mean? I don't know. It's very interesting. I think it's pretty deep. I don't think it's just about the 9/11, what happened there. I think it's much deeper about America. And maybe you could say 911, right? 9/11 was also 911, which is an emergency call. And after 9/11, we got together for a brief period of time, and then we started fighting each other. And that's what the elites want, by the way. Let's keep in mind what the elites want. They want us fighting each other. And I'm not going to endlessly fight you guys. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not going to get in endless arguments with my friends or anybody else. I'm going to say what I say. They say what they say. We make a few understand. We back and forth so we understand each other. And after that, we have to let it go. In the meantime, let's fight the people who are really behind the scenes, who are pulling all the strings. And again, love him or hate him, and I'm not saying all he did was right, and I agree with Fabian on certain points. I don't think I don't think Trump is one of the elite people. I mean, in a certain way, I don't. I think he was used by them in certain ways. They played him, but I don't think he was one of them. The people who are the elites are the small number, just like the leftists are, who are a small number, and they've taken over. And I'm saying, why don't we do what the elite's doing? Why don't we become a force of one and then work with each other on the same things together that we can do something about? Can't we put aside some differences about candidates for the time being and secure our elections? Doesn't that make sense to anybody out there? Can't we do that? If you don't do it, the elite have won forever. Okay. And if you really want to fight people, expose the elite to some extent. But even better than that, forget about just the elite. Come together and build your community. Build yourself through God. Build your family. If you have a problem with people in your family, try to work it out if you can. I've got a mixed bag in my family. I just had a beautiful conversation with one of my family members. Beautiful conversation. And they really get it in certain ways. And we didn't agree on a lot of stuff, but they really get it in a lot of ways. So it's very beautiful. That just came from God. That was a call from God. It was beautiful. But if you can make amends with them. If you can't, live your way. But do something in your community. Do something in your world. Do something positive that's going to really move the needle. Okay. Okay, Brian. God's in charge of all of it. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him and who have been called according to His purpose. I agree. The only thing I would add to that is God's in charge, but it doesn't mean that we don't act. And I know Brian doesn't mean that, because obviously he does act. So there's a lot of people will say, oh, God's in charge. I'm going to go get on my lazy boy, kick back with a brewski and let the world go to hell because God's got it. Okay. Okay, Fabian's told me I'm judging again. Give me an allowance. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying what I see at this moment. I could be corrected, but you can be corrected too. So it's a two-way street. All right. Stick space. We hate violence, but it seems we're heading toward a civil war. Well, hopefully not. Founding fathers found out at some point. But again, the founding fathers did the work. Do the work. Don't get angry and do stupid stuff. I'm not advocating violence. Okay. I'm advocating we get busy and do something about our world right around us. Okay. Fabian thinks we're America's mystery of Babylon, whatever. I don't care about, all I care about is what I see in front of me and what work we need to do. The rest of this is just noise to me right now. I can't guess what America is. America is cursed and this and that. If you can get into that mindset too, that America is cursed and then therefore we don't, it's over for America. I ain't going there. Sorry. Fabian says I'm a little too excited, Patrick, but okay. Let us call in. Well, I called in. We talked the other night. I called you, Fabian, but you got me off the phone. But you gave me a little time. You did, and maybe I was talking too much. So anyway, one day we'll do a call in. I'm not going to do a call in with my cell phone, but maybe one day we can figure out how to do calls. We can get this thing up, and I don't mind talking to people. All right, Fabian is relentless. Then Patrick should run for office. I got a lot of skeletons in my closet, but the good thing is my skeletons are pretty much out there. So what are they going to do to me, right? My skeletons are out there. It's not like I'm hiding stuff. My life is an open book. What are you going to get me with? What are you going to get me on? I told you all about myself already. People that know me already know me. They know what I've done or what good and bad. And so there's nothing they can do to me. Okay. Fabian says it makes me want to be right all the more. That's good. It's a blessing. He wants us to know it's where the real hope for earth is. Oh, okay. I think he's talking about the end time. Hey, I'm not trying to convince you anything. You be into whatever you're into. And I'm not saying you're wrong about everything either. The whole world declare war on a tyrant. The whole world should declare war on any tyrant. It's like kids allowing the bully to begrudge one kid. Yep. Keep on. Fabian, you have the right to say whatever you want about Trump. I don't think it's always wise what you say, the way you're going about it, but you can keep it up. I'm not going to give you my blessing on all the way you do stuff. I'm just not. So you can keep coming back at me, and maybe I will someday. I'll see the error of my ways or whatever. At the moment, I don't see it. I think what you're saying is great in a lot of ways. I don't care what anybody says. There is a way to go about stuff. That's why God gave us wisdom. Solomon was the wisest man on earth for a reason. He used wisdom. You don't just throw truth at people. Oh, this is true. I'm going to hammer them with truth all day. There is a way to deal with this stuff. And you think I'm being weak about it? Some of my friends do. I don't, not that I don't care what my friends say, but in a way I don't care because I know what I'm doing. I believe it's right. If I'm found to be wrong or if I learn, I can learn along the way. Oh, okay. I was a little too wishy-washy here. I was too diplomatic here, or I was too overexcited here, or whatever. We should all be looking at ourselves and self-correcting as we go, right? That's not true for any of us. We're all the same boat here. All right. I'm going to read one more from Martin, and then I'm going to get off here because Martin is my friend, and he disagrees with me a lot, and that's okay. But I'm going to see what he says. I have no idea what he's going to say, but I'm going to put it up here. I'm being real brave, right? All right. Oh, that was Fabian's. Okay, we'll put it up. We don't need anyone blessing, and I don't hammer people. Okay, I'm going to challenge you, Fabian. Are you able to not respond to something I'm saying? Is it possible not to have a response to everything? Okay. Martin, here we go. Patrick, I kind of disagree in that our political enemies now hate us that much that I think we need to separate and have two separate countries. We believe nothing of the way we believe. Interesting question. Maybe we need to do a whole show on that. Should we have succession? Right? That's a very interesting point because we're so at odds. Is it going to be just blue states and red states? And is it going to come to another kind of civil war of some kind? There's a lot of movements like that. Oregon has or Idaho has a greater Idaho movement where they're trying to get some of Eastern Oregon to come along with them. There's a California movement called, I think, Alta California, where they're trying to take the counties that agree with them and go with them. By the way, and I wanted to say this, so I'm just wrapping up with this. Think county level, okay? Think county level. Because if you look at the map, and we've all seen the map of the United States, I don't care if you're in a blue state, red state, or whatever, no matter what state you're in, most of the counties, by far the counties in your state are red because most people are not crazy like that. And shouldn't we, even if we have arguments with each other, we're arguing tonight kind of with our friends and things, shouldn't we able to at least be able to get together on the basics of at least electoral structure and how we're going to be governed? Wouldn't you all want to be governed by, not having like out of control abortion in your state, or not having your guns taken away, or, giving trans rights over Christians? I mean, don't we all agree on basic things about how shouldn't we get together and try to bring that about so us, our kids, grandkids, whoever down the line can live in relative freedom? Isn't that what we should be searching for? And you can go off on your other tangents that you want to go on. I'm not going to stop you. But shouldn't we at base try to have a world of freedom around us and live that way? I think that's pretty dang basic. I think I said dang 3 times today so far. I don't know why I'm on dang today. I guess I'm covering up another word. Patrick, secession, great. How? Okay. Nah. Okay, I'm not going to get into succession here. If we can stay United States, obviously it's a lot better. You can protect yourself better. There's all sorts of good reasons for it. I'm just saying we're breaking up to the point where I think we should try to take over the state's politics. Instead of just trying to succeed, we should try to take over the politics like they do. A few of us, like leftists, elitists, commies, whoever, have taken over with a few people. We should reverse that and do the same. That's what I'm basically saying. If we can do that, great. All right, I'm going to give Martin one more word in here, phrase, and I think we'll be out. The ancient prophets warned against Israel. Ancient Israel turned back from God for many, many years until he finally said, it's too late, you're going to be destroyed. Yeah. I'm not doubting any of that. Once you start killing your unborn children, it's kind of downhill from there, unfortunately. It starts getting worse. You take prayer away. I get it. We've done all of those wrong things. I've done lots of shows on spiritual matters. This show, I was just trying to make a point here of how important it is. If we're going to hammer people about elections, or we're for this guy, we're against this guy, let's spend a little time getting the electoral process back. Okay? I think that's a fair thing to do. Anyway, I think I've gone long enough. Let you guys get to your Saturday night. I want to thank everybody for being here. And I guess that's it. So I'm gonna sign out here, and I was gonna throw some music on just for fun here to go out with, but yeah, I think I'll throw some music on. Anyway, thanks for being here, and you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll continue to argue and agree with some things or whatever, but I hope we can agree on the basics at least and get our country back. And that starts with prayer, of course, first. Gotta pray, know who God is, and pray to God. And we've done a lot of shows about prayer and things like that, but prayer first. God is great, and we're not going to get our country back unless we humble ourselves to him first. So thank you guys. God bless you guys, and have a good night. We'll see you next week.